Tonight, or this evening, I'm going to talk about automated dependency updates, what that means, how you can achieve automated dependency updates, and then a little project I'm involved in called Renovate. So first of all, a little introduction. My name is Jamie Magee. I'm a software engineer here at Microsoft. And you can find me on Twitter or GitHub if you've got any questions after, or just grab me. So I'll start off with a story. Show of hands, who here has heard of Equifax? Oh, okay. If I'd asked that in 2016, I wonder what the answer would have been. Probably not as much. But you know them for all the wrong reasons. You know them because they got hacked. It's not what they want you to know them for, but it's the truth. And the reason they got hacked was due to a vulnerability in Apache struts. It's a Java library, but what many people don't know is that the patched version of Apache struts was actually available 2 months before the hack. So if they had the proper processes in place, could they have put the patch in time, and would we be talking about them today? So let's start off with, why do you want to automate dependency updates? After hearing that, you might say, yeah, we've got good processes, we keep our dependencies up to date, we don't need any of this. Okay, that might be true, but software developers are lazy, right? I'm one, I know, but you don't have to take my word for it. Bill Gates once said that he will always choose a lazy person to do a difficult task, because a lazy person will find an easy way to do the task. And it's the truth, no matter how streamlined your processes are, no matter how good you are at keeping stuff up to date, it still takes time, and all that time adds up. On top of that, we rely on a lot of dependencies nowadays. I'm sure you're pretty aware. And not just directly, but indirectly too. So Node modules contains not just your dependencies, but the dependencies of your dependencies, and the dependencies of your dependencies of your dependencies, and so on and so on and so on. And all of those can have updates and patches and security vulnerabilities. And I'm not picking on JavaScript either. Other languages aren't innocent. So this table shows the average number of direct and indirect dependencies for the average project on GitHub, split by language. So JavaScript, by far and away, the largest number of indirect dependencies. For every npm install and yarn add you do, you get around 20 extra packages on average. But Ruby, Rust, and PHP are just as bad. You get on average more than one dependency for adding one to your project. Python is the only one which kind of squeaks in there, but it's still not great. There's still dependencies you're not aware of. And it might be possible for your direct dependencies to keep them up to date, but it's an almost inhuman task to keep 712 packages up to date. So to switch tracks a little bit, some of you might have heard of an npm package called Event Stream. It's a popular npm package, and its maintainer handed over access to the package to publish to npm to a malicious third party, unknown to the author at the time. This malicious third party added code to steal Bitcoin wallets. And I'll admit, automating dependency updates doesn't solve this issue, but neither does doing it manually either. A lot of people were caught off guard by this. And speaking of security vulnerabilities, this graph, produced by a company called Sneak, shows the number of new vulnerabilities each year by package ecosystem. I'm sorry about the color scheme. I didn't draw the graph, but it kind of does change color from left to right. But on the top there, you have Maven, which is for Java, Scala, Kotlin, those sort of languages. They have the largest number of vulnerabilities, But npm is in there as well, coming in at number 2 last year. So even if you don't directly depend on a vulnerable package, you might indirectly and not really know about it. There's just so many security vulnerabilities now. So the next question is, how do you automate your dependency updates? So this is where I get to talk about a project that I'm involved in called Renovate. It's fully open source on GitHub. And the idea is to save you time and reduce risk by automating this whole process of keeping your dependencies up to date. And it's completely customizable to work around how you work. And it supports a huge range of different languages and different projects. But instead of just talking about it, I'd like to show a quick demo. So let's switch over here. Cool. So what I'm going to do for the demo is I'm going to show a comparison of how you would update a dependency manually, which I'm sure you've done more than once, versus how you do it with Renovate, and just contrast and compare. So the project that I'm going to pick is VS Code. It's a text editor IDE produced by Microsoft, open source on GitHub, and all written in TypeScript. So what I've done is I've gone ahead and made a clone of that, and then I've pulled that locally onto my laptop. So let's jump into the terminal. Can everyone see that? Or yeah, cool. So first of all, I'm going to show Renovate, and then I'll let it run in the background while I do the manual test. But first of all, we need to configure Renovate. So you do this normally by putting a little configuration file in your repository. And this is just a minimal example. So I'll just walk through it line by line to show you what kind of stuff we're doing here. So first of all, we're going to set some sensible defaults. Renovate ships with some default configurations that you can turn on or off that a lot of people might want to use. So first of all, we'll set up our base config. We tell it we want to rebase stale pull requests on GitHub. So if master branch changes, it will rerun the update on the latest master. And then just for the demo, I want to disable rate limiting. Next, the next two settings here are about having configuration in your repository. Because I'm going to run this locally, we don't want to worry about having the configuration checked into our repository. I want to tell it, just use what I have locally. The next line is including forks. I've made a fork of the project. Normally it doesn't run against forks to reduce the noise. The next one, the way that VS Code specifies dependency ranges, they have a range as opposed to pinning. So we'll tell Renovate we want to bump the range as opposed to pin the version, just to stick with what they use. The last one is my GitHub API access token, which I'm going to have to revoke after this presentation. I hope none of you have photographic memory. And then the last one is just the repository I want it to run against. You can tell it to run against everything the API access key has access to, or you can just pin it down to a specific repository. So I'm going to jump back to the terminal, and we'll just run npx renovate. So it's going to pull down Renovate and then just execute it. I hope. I just want to see some output here before I jump across to the manual step. Cool, so it's cloning the repository into a temporary file. It's authenticated as my user, and clone is complete. Run some git commands, and then it's going to start looking in the file hierarchy for package JSON files. So it's found some npm package files, some nvm files. It's already found some packages with deprecation messages, and there we go. It's found 123 updates, and it's going to work in the background and do this. So while that's going, let's see how we do something like that manually. VS Code uses yarn, and yarn has this great command called yarn outdated. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it takes a look at your package.json, the one in the current directory, and is able to show you what's outdated, and gives a nice little color legend here. So red is major updates, yellow is minor, and green is patch. That's if everyone is following semantic versioning. But I want to pick, let's see, so ANSI colors, we have an update from 323 to 324. Nice and easy, let's go and do that. No, so it does have 4.1.1, but it will show you kind of the latest, like the latest major bump, as well as I think the smaller one that meets your range. I'm not super familiar with it, but so let's jump back across, and I have package.json open here on ANSI colors, like I planned this with the head. I will make this change, and then we'll create branch. See, we just have this diff. Oh no. What? Okay. So I've created my commit, pushed the branch up to GitHub, and it's telling me I can create a new pull request here. Oh. So I can create that pull request. Oh, whoops, I've created that against the actual VS Code. Didn't want to do that. Let's close that. Okay. Whatever. So if I jump back to Renovate, you can see it's creating a lot of output, but basically what it's doing is it's generating all these branches, making pull requests. So if we go back to my fork, you can see that it created a load of branches. If I pick one that it has opened earlier, yeah, here we go. So this is one of the updates that it suggested. It created a pull request for this package. It's a dependency as opposed to a dev dependency. A minor update and then the change. And what's really nice is we get the release notes in here. So it knows the GitHub repository, and you can go right in ahead and see the release notes and even the issues or the pull requests that that these are linked to. And if I click on this, it should send me to the Git repository, so you can see what sort of changes are happening there. And what's even nicer is you can actually do a diff of the files included in the two package versions. Here's one I opened earlier. So yes, that was a quick demo. Let me. So I guess that's a comparison then of Renovate versus updating dependencies manually. Are there any questions I can take? Yeah.
Does it do any testing?
So if you have any tests set up to run against pull requests, then yes.
Okay, so you can do front-end tests on them.
It's a standard pull request. So if you have tests set to run on
because it puts you in a different branch.
Yeah, it creates branches, creates a pull request, the same as any person. Yeah.
So like updating package, usually like the biggest problem with the major version changes that like you probably need to change the code base.
Mhm.
So do you do it like different, like in a different branch, or like how do you do it? Just for each break?
Yeah, great question, actually. So it's able to differentiate between major, minor, and patch changes. And the default behavior is that it will bundle minor and patch changes together. So say, for example, you have a package version 1.0.0, and all at the same time, there's version 2, version 1.1, and version 1.0.1. It will create 2 pull requests, one for version 2 and one for version 1.1. The idea is that you should be able to merge minor patches quite easily. And major patches, you might want to kind of leave it a little bit and schedule the time to actually get around to doing it. So that's the default behavior, but like I said, you can customize it. If you want to split into 3 different branches, that works as well. Yeah, right there.
Is there any special treatment for packages like Babel, where every release gets an update in all the other packages, depending on the Babel core, for example?
Yeah, that's a good question. It supports what's called package grouping. By default, we have included like major packages, Babel being one of them. I think React and React Router are the kind of same. You have to update them at the same time. So it knows about all the major packages that have this requirement. But you can also define your own package groupings. So if there's some packages you publish internally or some other one we don't have support for, you can totally define your own. Yeah.
So basically what it does is just update packages and create pull requests.
Yeah. So it's meant to lighten the load of doing this manually. So you kind of get this pull request ready to merge, and if your tests pass, good. Yeah.
Could you compare with GitHub has an automated system for that too? So it will show you that you have it will come up with a security report and you just make a pull request.
Yeah. So GitHub has Dependabot. That's the one you're talking about, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So they recently acquired a company with a product called Dependabot, and it does something similar. But I would say Renovate has a wider support for different languages, and also has wider support for different version control or different version control sites. So Dependabot is solely focused on GitHub with kind of basic support for Bitbucket. But Renovate supports GitHub, GitHub Enterprise, Azure DevOps, Bitbucket, Bitbucket Server. I think there's also one more as well. GitLab, that's it, thank you. And Dependabot is kind of open source. So the bot itself isn't, but they provide you with like a library. So it's up to you to write your own bot to do this, whereas Renovate comes straight out of the box. Like I showed, npx Renovate is really all you need to get going, and it comes with some good defaults for JavaScript projects. Yeah.
What if I forget to run npx Renovate? Like, is there any way I can have a service that's checking every hour after it's not been processed?
Yeah, so there's a free service on GitHub that runs, I think it is hourly, but there isn't anything for other VCS providers right now. It's something we're looking into, but yeah, not right now. I think GitHub covers 90% of users anyway. Oh, sorry. Let's talk after. Yeah. Yeah, so it also looks at your lock file. Yeah.
It updates the package lock, like sort of shaped up.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, it doesn't just look at package JSON, also looks at package lock. So, we support npm, yarn, and about 15 other kind of languages as well. Cool. Yeah, if anyone's got any more questions, please grab me afterwards. But I think we'll just wrap it up there. Oh, one more.
But you're working with this project, right? Like you're actually coding some part of it?
Yeah, so I'm a maintainer of this project, completely separate from my day-to-day job. But in my free time, yes, I'm a maintainer on this project.
How long have you made of it?
So I worked on support for Azure DevOps, and I've been leading the conversion from JavaScript to TypeScript. Yeah. All right. Thank you very much.